In this episode, we're going to work on building on our attack system where we're going to build out the rest of our sword attack. We're going to add some sound effects to our sword slash, and we're going to implement a health bar for our character. So let's head over to our character script, and the first thing that I want to do is reset our max health back to a higher value. So let's just bump that back up to 10 real quick. And we are going to add a new node. It's just going to be an audio stream player. And we're going to assign a sound effect to it, which I will put the link in the description. I changed slightly the folder names, but you'll recognize all of these. We'll go to the battle folder, and we're going to take this slash animation and just drag it into the stream for our audio stream player. And then let's just rename this node to our sword audio. And we need to make this as an onReady variable for us. Then we can go into our attack state. And now when we enter this, we're going to want to tap in to that sword audio that we just created. So we can get our character, and then we want to get our sword audio. And we're going to adjust the pitch scale on this. So we're never going to hear the same sound effect in the same pitch back to back, or it's going to be more random. So if you're slashing a bunch of times in a row, it will sound slightly different, which just gives the attack a little bit more life. So we're going to do between a range of 0.8 and 1.2. The standard is 1, so it's not going to be too drastic, but it will be noticeable. And then we'll just go back into our character, go into the sword audio, and we can play it. So if we go in and test this out, you'll start to hear this. We still haven't set up our hitboxes and stuff properly for the sword, so let's start working on that. Let's go back to our character script, and let's click on the hitbox node, and we can remove the layer, and we want to set this to mask on our enemy. And in order for us to actually have this work, we need to attach a collision shape to our sword in all of our attack frames. So let's just first look at attack down. Resize this a little bit. Okay. And let's go to our sword collision. Let's add a rectangle. Let's just position this. We're going to make it pretty forgiving for the player. So I want it to be pretty decently big. And what we want to do here is we need to make sure that when we're entering our attack animations that this isn't going to be disabled. So by default, it's not disabled. But in our reset, we do want to make this as disabled, because if we don't do this, then our character is just going to be walking around with this hitbox, and he's not going to have to actually attack in order for him to deal damage. This box is always going to be there. So we want to, whenever we're in the reset, we want to reset to disabling our hitbox. Then we go back to the attack down. We have it not disabled here. And then we want to click on this collision shape and key the position. Then we have to go into each of these frames and just start organizing this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just to expand on the hitbox size. We're not keying in the size, so this is just going to end up being the size for the entire hitbox. So let's key this position in. Did that not work? Oh, it did down here. Okay. Then we're just going to move this over, key it in, and just do the rest of these as such. And then at the end, we do, so at the same place that we are disabling the weapon sprite, we want to re-disable, just as another safety check for us, that we're going to take away the weapon collision shape. So now when we play this, you can see our hitbox moves along with it. And now we just need to set this up for the rest of them. I'm going to fast forward through this. So you don't have to watch me set it up. And your values don't have to match mine exactly. Just make it so that it looks proper with your sword setup. So now that we have those set up, let's go back into our hitbox script, and we're going to make a couple of updates here. So we're going to add a variable, just that's going to be called has hit. It's going to be a bool, and we're going to default this to false. And then we're going to make a new method that is just reset hit status, which doesn't take in anything, it doesn't return anything, and we're just going to reset that has hit boolean to false. And then in our on hitbox area entered, we want to check if we has hit, we're going to return. And then if we're checking if it's a hurt box, we're going to do has hit equals true. We may have to add additional checks to this, but for right now, this should be good. So we just check if it's hit. If it has been hit, we don't do any more damage until it is allowed to be hit again. So let's go see if this is properly hooked up. So in enemy, in our take damage, let's just print. So we're going to do in our ready, let's just debug our print. We'll type in our current health. And then after we take damage, let's do some print statements. Took damage, health, and then we will pass in the current health. So I'm going to set a breakpoint here just to see if we're properly hitting this. And let's test this out. So now you can see what I was referencing with our hitbox. You can also hear the different sounds. Okay, so we hit this breakpoint. So if I go to the output, after we resume this, we will see that the health has been updated. There we go. Enemy took damage. So right now, it doesn't really give us a lot of good feedback that we're actually hitting our enemy. So let's go ahead and remove these print statements, and let's actually make a flash effect so that when we hit our enemy, he is going to flash a specific color, and then we're also going to apply some knockback to the slime so that he doesn't just keep advancing right to our player. So in the enemy script, this is going to be something that we can apply to all of our enemies, but if we want to override it in future enemies, we can also still do that. Let's call this method, we're going to call it flash hit. And we're going to need to make a tween. So we're going to create a tween. Get some more room here. And then we're going to do some tween properties on here. So we're going to get tween property. We're going to do it on ourself, and we're going to modulate. We're going to get a color. Do 1, 0, and 0. And then we're going to pass in what we're going to call hit flash duration, which is going to be a variable that we're going to have to set up. And we're going to times it by 0.2. And then we're going to do this 2 more times. Oops. Okay. In the second color, instead of 1, 0, 0, it's going to be 1.5s across the board. And then we're going to multiply it by 0.3. And then in the last one, it's going to be 1, 1, 1, and we're going to multiply it by 0.5. So let's go set up at the top. We're going to have 2 more export variables. So we're going to have an export variable of our hit flash duration, which we just created, which is going to be 0.2. And then while we're here, let's make an export variable for our knockback force, which is a float as well, and we're going to just default this to 100. And then we're also going to make a regular variable to track our state of if we're being knocked. We're just going to call it is knocked, or is knocked back. It's a bool, and we will make it false for right now. So let's go test out the flash right now. So we can do that in our take damage method. All we have to do is after we subtract our health, or the amount of damage we're taking, we just want to flash our hit. So let's test this out. Let's go hit our slime. There he goes. He flashes red very briefly. But now we actually want to make it so that he's knocked back. So let's create another method below flash hit, and we can call this apply knockback. We're going to just do a check on our if our game manager dot character. So if we have one, we're going to is knocked back. It's going to be equal to true. And then we have to get our knockback direction because we want to make sure that we're knocking back our slime in the opposite direction of, or in the direction of where our player's coming from. So it's a natural knockback. So let's get our knockback direction, and it's going to be equal to the global position. So our global position of our enemy minus the game manager, our character, and get his global position, and then we're going to normalize it. Then we have to go assign the velocity equal to the knockback direction times our knockback force. And we're going to await. We're going to get tree, create a timer, 0.25, and then on timeout, we do velocity. It's going to be equal to vector2.0, so he's going to stop moving. And then we can go to is knockback, set it back to false. Then we need to go into our take damage after flash hit. We want to apply knockback. And we need to make a slight adjustment into our slime's move state. So let's go into our slime and find the move state script. And in our physics update, right after we get the enemy, we're going to do if enemy dot is knocked back. We just return. I also want to make some updates to the lose interest range. This 200 is a little bit too big. With our window size, it ends up being the slime is completely off screen when he's losing interest. So let's change this to around 75. And then in our slime's idle state, let's update this to be about 50. And now let's test this out. So we have to get much closer now. Let's see if we can get our slime to stop. Not yet. All right, he's still not getting knocked back. Then one thing that we missed previously in our slime idle state, and one of the reasons that I think the detect range and lose interest range wasn't working, because when we enter the idle state, we're never actually changing our velocity back to 0. So we're going to adjust this a little bit differently. We're going to create a variable called enemy up here. It's going to be of the type enemy, and we're just going to move this line into our enter and just get rid of the variable declaration and just assign our enemy to the owner as an enemy. So now we have access to this enemy variable as well. And then we are going to set our enemy's velocity equal to vector2.0. Then we are going to enemy, get in our animation player, and play our idle animation. So now when we play this, we should be able to get far enough away that he's going to actually stop. Okay. The knockback is not working, and we also can't get him to actually flash a hit on any consecutive hits. So in our enemy script, we're not seeing the knockback. So let's go take a look at this. Knockback is true. Knockback direction. Okay. That's an issue. It should be 0.25, not comma. So that was definitely causing issues. Now let's check this out. There we go. Okay, but now we still can't hit him again. So our reset status is not working properly right now, so we're not resetting our hitbox status. So this is never getting reset to true. So let's go to our attack state. And when we enter the attack state, we should be setting our game manager, our character, and getting the node of our hitbox. Then we can reset our hit status. So this should reset it back to be true. And since this is strictly for our character, this isn't a attack state that our enemy is going to extend from, this will work for our character. So let's go check this out. There we go. Okay. And now, you can see our slime just dies and disappears. We can add some other animations, or we can add the slime to be able to drop some items at some point. But for now, let's try and implement a health bar for our player. So let's head back to our character scene, and we're going to make a new canvas layer node, and we're going to call this our health bar, and we're going to create a child node of that for our progress bar. Let's drag this as an onReady here, and we check out our 2D scene. This is what our health bar looks like right now. I don't want to show a percentage right now. I'm also going to change the size in a little bit, but we actually want to see what this looks like first. So let's go into our theme overrides, and we're going to change these background and fills. So we're going to do a style box flat for both of them. And we're going to make our background be a red color because that's what's going to show as our green bar is getting lower. So I'm going to make it, just choose a red color. We're going to give it a corner radius of 4, so it's a little bit, so you have some rounded corners here. Let's extend this so you can see what it looks like. And we're going to make it a little bit more narrow like this. I think that's still pretty big, but we can always come back and tweak it. And then we are going to do, on our fill, we're going to make a green color. And let's do the same corner radius here. So we're going to do 4s across the board. And just to show you what this looks like, we can play with the value here. So if we're at 70 health, this is what our health bar would look like. We're going to set all these values in code. So none of these are really going to matter right now, but now we have this visually set up. So if we test our scene, nothing's connected. But you can see our health bar is always going to be in that top left corner. So back in our character script, in our ready method, we need to set up our health. We need to set up our health bar. So let's tap into our health bar. I need to rename the progress bar. I'm going to call it our health bar. And we're going to set our health bar's max value equal to our max health. And then we're going to get the health bar value and set it to our current health. So if we play this now, it should be all green. There we go. And then back in our take damage method, after we current health minus equals health amount, we want to also update our health bar. So the value is going to now equal our current health. So if we reset this now, when we play this, when we walk into our guy or walk into the slime, we're going to take damage. Okay. We're only taking damage once, so we have to fix that. So we're never resetting the hitbox status for our slime. I think instead of doing it in our character's attack state, we should just reset the status after the area's owner takes damage. So let's see if we can go back to our character's attack state. Let's just comment this out right now. And let's see if everything still works appropriately. Yeah, so we take damage, and now we're still taking damage. Okay, I think that's a better solution anyways. So let's do that. We can get rid of this line. And now in our hitbox, after the person taking the damage takes their damage, we just reset the status so that they can be hit again, whether you're a player or an enemy. I think it would be nice though if our character had an invulnerability state. So after he gets hit, he isn't able to get hit again for a fraction of time to allow him to escape. We should probably add some knockback to the player too, which we can do as we add more enemies and advance in this series. But for right now, let's just go back to our character script here and let's add a couple of other variables. So our export variable is going to be called invulnerability time. And it's a float, and it's only going to be 0.6 seconds. And then we need to have a state tracker for is invulnerable bool, and it's going to default to false. Then down in our take damage, we need to create a new method first to be able to use our invulnerability. So we want to have a start invulnerability method where we're just going to turn our is invulnerable to true. And then we're going to await on a timer. So we're going to get tree. We're going to create a timer on that invulnerability time that we just made. And then on the timeout, we're going to just reset is invulnerable back to false. We need to modify a bit in our take damage as well. So if we are invulnerable, we don't want to continue to take damage, so we just have to return. But then after we do get hit down here, we want to start our invulnerability. So now we might need to change the times quickly, but yeah, now I can't take damage really quickly after taking damage. So this might make more sense if we just test this out with, let's just do a long invulnerability time. So I'll be able to walk into my slime, take my damage. Now I can keep walking into him. And after 5 seconds, I can take more damage. So once we add a knockback to our player, it will be a lot easier. We could potentially add some visual effects to our player too when he actually takes damage. But for now, I think this is a decent place for us to stop. In the next episode, we're going to fix some movement issues that we have while we're attacking. Right now, when we are using our sword and we're moving, our character can still slide even when we're not pressing arrow keys. We're going to further build out our map, and then we're going to hopefully get to a place where we can enter our house and potentially the cave as well.